The afternoon begins with a calm warmth resting over the outdoor set. A soft glow covers the painted storefronts and narrow street, making everything feel simple and peaceful. Crew members move with steady purpose, checking cables, whispering cues, lifting gear across the pavement. The place feels almost real with its bright windows and arranged signs, even though everyone knows the buildings are hollow inside. Laughter drifts from one corner while quiet instructions echo from another, creating a gentle rhythm that settles over the scene. No one notices the thin gray line forming far above the rooftops. It hides between brighter clouds like a secret waiting for the right moment to appear. Keanu stands near the monitors with relaxed shoulders, listening carefully to a camera operator describe a minor adjustment. He does not interrupt, he waits, he nods, and his stillness makes people around him breathe easier. His simple presence brings calm, like a steady pillar people trust without needing explanation. Sandra warms her hands around a mug as she takes her place near the crosswalk. A tired week weighs slightly in her posture, yet her smile remains kind when crew members pass by. The director gathers them gently, describing the timing of their simple walk across the street. The moment should feel soft and natural, like real life unfolding without effort. A quiet connection between two people in the middle of an ordinary day. Their rehearsals flow smoothly, each step and line settling into a gentle rhythm. Keanu speaks with thoughtful pacing, and Sandra matches him with easy warmth. They walk together across the painted lines, returning to their marks again and again with patient focus. The crew resets without stress, adjusting lights, shifting props, tightening small details. The entire space holds a delicate balance that feels safe and familiar. Yet the sky above changes shade by shade, small shifts hidden behind bright rig panels and fabric banners. Wind brushes lightly across Sandra's cheek, cooler than before, carrying something sharp beneath its softness. She glances upward, sensing something but unable to name it fully. Keanu notices the change as soon as the breeze touches the back of his neck. The air now carries a faint metallic edge, the kind that comes before sudden storms. He studies the tall banners along the street, watching how they move with uneven jerks instead of smooth waves. Experience whispers that the weather is shifting faster than anyone expects. Still, he stays calm, keeping his breathing even, keeping his attention open. He steps a little closer to Sandra during each reset without making it obvious. His instinct tells him to stay within reach, just in case the day decides to turn. The director calls for another wide take, believing the sky still offers enough time. Sandra steps to her mark again, holding the last warmth of her mug close to her hands. Keanu joins her, giving a small, reassuring smile that steadies her tired nerves. They begin their walk as the camera rolls back smoothly across the track. The scene feels gentle and steady until something cold lands on Sandra's cheek. She blinks, touches her face, and feels the single drop of water spread across her skin. Before she can process it, another drop falls, then another, until the sky suddenly opens. Heavy rain slams against the street, scattering reflections across the slick pavement. Crew members rush with covers, voices rising in urgent bursts as equipment must be protected immediately. Carts roll out of the way, cables lift from the ground, and plastic sheets stretch across expensive gear. The once quiet set becomes a fast-moving blur of color and motion under the hammering rain. Sandra wipes water from her eyelashes, trying to see clearly through the thick curtain pouring around her. She hears distant instructions, but cannot tell which direction leads toward safer shelter. Confusion builds in her chest, mixed with the chill of sudden rain soaking through her coat. Keanu steps closer, his focus tightening, his calm presence grounding her in the midst of chaos. Rain travels down his face and jacket, yet he barely reacts, his attention fixed upward on the towering rigs. Something about their movement looks wrong, not natural, not safe. One structure leans with a strange, uneven rhythm, holding heavy panels at an angle that should not exist. A sharp gust of wind hits the set, forcing the rig to shudder with a deep metallic groan. Keanu eyes the top joint twitching, metal rubbing in a way that signals danger. Across the lot, the head electrician spots the same problem and starts running toward the base. He shouts warnings, waving people back, trying to cut through the storm noise. Sandra stands near the crosswalk, almost directly in the arc of danger without knowing it. She turns her head left and right, searching for guidance through the chaotic noise. Her heartbeat quickens as uncertainty grows, not from panic but from instinct sensing something wrong. Keanu watches her position, the unstable rig, the distance between them, and the direction of the wind. He feels the moment sharpen inside him, a quiet certainty that everything is about to change. The rain crashes harder, drowning out half the voices around them. The rig above groans once more, louder and more urgent. Another violent gust hits the lot, and the top of the structure jerks sideways in a sudden lurch. Metal screeches through the storm, sending a vibrating warning across the wet pavement. Some crew members freeze, unsure which way to move as fear pulls them in different directions. The electrician keeps waving, slipping on the slick ground as he tries to clear the immediate area. Keanu does not hesitate. Every muscle in his body responds with instinct sharpened by years of experience. He steps forward with full commitment, driven by one simple intention to reach Sandra before the danger reaches her. The rain grows heavier with each passing second as the set shifts from controlled chaos to something far more unpredictable. Water races down every painted surface while puddles form quickly around the crosswalk where Sandra stands. Her breath comes faster as she pushes wet hair away from her eyes, trying to understand the danger she only feels but cannot fully see. Crew members shout warnings that vanish into the storm, their voices tangled with thunder and echoing walls. A sense of urgency spreads across the lot as cables are lifted and carts are pulled back, yet Sandra remains caught in the center of it all. She turns slowly, searching for a clear path, but the storm distorts everything around her into rushing motion and scattered sound. Keanu watches the unstable rig sway, studying every small movement as rain streams across his face. Years of stunt training sharpen his instincts now, turning scattered details into a clear picture of risk. He sees how the wind hits the tallest panels first, sees the angle of the top joint, sees exactly where Sandra stands beneath it. The shifting metal groans again, louder and more strained, like warning breath before a collapse. He knows there is no time to shout instructions or wait for rescue from the far side of the lot. Every passing second closes the distance between danger and impact. His heartbeat steadies instead of racing, settling into a calm readiness shaped by responsibility. Sandra steps backward, then forward, unable to tell which direction offers safety. The ground shines like a mirror beneath her feet, making each step careful and unsteady. Water from the rooftops pours down the false gutters, creating loud sheets that blur her view of everything ahead. She feels the storm pushing against her, strong enough to break her balance if she moves too fast. Fear rises slowly in her chest, not a panic scream, but a quiet tightening that warns her that she is vulnerable. She turns one more time and finally locks eyes with Keanu through the rain. Something in his gaze tells her that this moment matters more than she realizes. The electrician reaches the base of the rig and sees the clamp barely holding, its bolts rattling with each gust. Water runs over his hands as he tries to grip the slick metal, but it is too late to steady the structure by force. He waves both arms wildly at the people around him, trying to clear the area before the rig gives way. His boots slip on the wet ground, and he catches himself on a case before falling. He shouts again, but the storm swallows half of his warning before it reaches the center of the set. The urgency in his expression finally catches the attention of nearby crew members, who begin pulling others back. Keanu takes 3 long strides towards Sandra, his steps controlled despite the slick pavement. Each movement is deliberate, measured, shaped by focus rather than fear. He feels the wind push against him and shifts his balance to stay grounded. Rain hits his skin in stinging bursts, but he does not slow down. The noise around him fades until there is only the groan of the rig and the sight of Sandra standing vulnerable beneath it. He sees her lift her hand slightly as if reaching for stability, searching for something solid in the storm. He knows he must reach her before the structure leans any farther. Another violent gust tears across the lot, harder and sharper than the ones before it. The top of the rig jerks forward in a sudden lunge, sending water and fragments of rust flying downward. Sandra hears the metal shift but cannot see clearly through the sheet of rain that blinds her. She takes one step backward, but her foot slips on the wet line of the crosswalk. Her arms lift instinctively to steady herself, yet her balance wavers dangerously. The sudden motion fills her with rising fear as she realizes she no longer knows where the safe direction lies. She calls out, but the storm muffles her voice before it travels far. Keanu reaches her just as her body moves unpredictably with the shifting ground. He places a steady hand on her arm, guiding her back to balance with a calm firmness. His touch anchors her, giving her something solid to hold onto in the blur of confusion. She feels his strength through the rain-soaked layers and breathes out in relief without meaning to. She looks up at him, searching his expression for answers, and sees unwavering focus in his eyes. He gently adjusts her position, moving her away from the area beneath the rig without alarming her. Even in the storm, his movements hold quiet respect and care. The rig groans again, louder now, bending at an angle that leaves no room for doubt. The electrician sees the final shift and braces himself for impact, knowing he cannot stop it from above. He points desperately toward Keanu and Sandra, urging them to move faster, urging someone to understand the danger. More crew members finally notice the tilt and begin shouting for everyone to clear the crosswalk. Sandra hears a wave of voices rising behind her but cannot make out the exact words. Confusion and fear mix with the rain on her skin as thunder rumbles overhead. Keanu tightens his hand around her arm, not forcefully but with protective certainty. He speaks only a quiet phrase meant for her alone, guiding her attention back to him. The calm tone steadies her breathing even though the storm grows harsher around them. He leads her a few steps farther from the danger zone, his body shielding her from sudden gusts. She follows his movement easily, trusting his guidance without hesitation. He keeps his focus split between her steps and the collapsing angle of the rig behind them. The situation intensifies, but his presence remains steady, kind, and grounded. The storm rages louder, pushing water across the pavement as lightning flashes far beyond the backlot wall. The towering structure trembles with increasing violence, each movement sharper than the last. Every sign points toward a collapse that could strike the exact area they just vacated. The world narrows around them into rain, metal stress, rushing footsteps, and the thin distance between safety and impact. Keanu positions himself slightly in front of Sandra, ready to move again if the danger shifts direction. Sandra feels her heartbeat slow just enough to breathe, because she knows she is not alone. The storm may control the sky, but kindness shapes the ground beneath them as he stays by her side. The rain strikes harder now as the storm tightens its grip on the set. Water runs in fast streams down the false building walls, turning every edge of the street into a sliding surface. Crew members scatter in tense patterns, some pulling equipment back, others shouting warnings that get lost in the thunder. The once controlled environment has shifted into a place where every sound feels urgent and every movement uncertain. Sandra stands close to Keanu, her breath trembling as she tries to understand the danger building behind the blur of heavy rain. Though she trusts him completely, she can sense from his posture that something worse is coming. Keanu keeps one hand gently on her arm as he watches the unstable rig above them tilt farther. He can feel the structure fighting against the storm, hear the bolts rattling and scraping inside the metal frame. Each groan from above lands like a countdown inside his mind. He shifts his body slightly, positioning himself between Sandra and the danger zone without making her panic. His instincts sharpen into a quiet clarity shaped by years of responding under pressure. He sees the direction of the lean, the angle of the fall, the weight of the equipment, and the shrinking time left to react. Sandra wipes water from her eyelashes, blinking through the blur as she tries to follow Keanu's gaze. She sees only a tall shadow moving in strange rhythm above the street, its outline shifting like a giant pendulum caught in violent wind. Her pulse quickens as her senses finally register the threat. The sound of metal bending reaches her clearly now, deep and rough, vibrating through the wet pavement beneath her shoes. Uncertainty grows in her chest as she realizes how close she had been to standing directly under the failing structure. She turns toward Keanu, hoping for clarity, and finds only intense focus in his rain-soaked face. The electrician reaches the base of the rig again, trying desperately to secure the lower clamps. His hands slip against the wet metal, and his tools drop to the ground with a loud splash. He grabs a support chain and pulls with all his strength, but the upper joint refuses to lock. The storm pushes harder, sending a brutal gust that nearly knocks him backward. He understands with sinking dread that the structure cannot be saved in time. He shouts a final warning toward the center of the lot, pointing upward with frantic urgency as lightning flashes overhead. Keanu hears that warning even through the rain because he has been waiting for confirmation. He looks at the rig one more time and sees the final sign, the top panel tilting too far to recover. Everything inside him moves faster than thought. He tightens his hold on Sandra's arm just enough to guide her without fear. She feels the shift in his energy, a decisive change, and her breath catches in her throat. He tells her to stay close in a calm tone that cuts through the storm like a steady beacon. She nods without hesitation, letting trust lead her steps through the rising chaos. The rig gives another long groan, deeper and heavier than before, like the sound of something enormous losing balance. Sandra hears it so clearly that it sends a cold wave down her spine. She turns her head, watching the tall structure tilt in slow motion as rain blurs its edges. The metal panels sway violently, water sliding off their surfaces in sharp streams. The entire frame leans in a terrifying arc that points almost directly toward the crosswalk area they just left. She feels her breath stop as the weight of the moment settles into her chest. Keanu reacts before the rig makes its full shift. He steps even closer to Sandra, shielding her with his body, ready to guide her away again if the structure swings unexpectedly. The storm pushes against both of them, yet he remains steady, grounding her with his calm presence. Sandra watches his expression and feels a strange mix of fear and comfort. She knows the danger is real, yet she also knows she is safe with him standing so close. His quiet strength becomes an anchor, something she can hold onto in the middle of the storm. The electrician sees the rig begin to fall and waves both arms wildly as he shouts for everyone to clear the area. Nearby crew members finally understand the severity and move back quickly, pulling others with them. The rain makes every step slippery, and several people stumble as they run away from the crosswalk. The echo of footsteps, the crash of water, the rumble of thunder, and the groaning metal blend into one relentless storm of sound. Sandra tries to breathe steadily, but adrenaline surges through her in sharp waves. Then comes the sharp twist. The top panel catches on a loose cable, jerking the entire structure in a sudden, unexpected direction. Instead of falling straight down, the rig swings sideways in a violent arc toward the center of the street. The motion is unpredictable and far more dangerous than anyone expected. Sandra gasps as the huge structure dips lower, closer, its shadow rushing across the pavement toward them. The change is so sudden that crew members freeze in shock, unsure how to react fast enough. The twist transforms the situation from simple danger into something far more chaotic. Keanu moves instantly. He shifts his stance, adjusts his grip on Sandra, and prepares to guide her out of the swing path. He keeps his voice low and steady, giving simple instructions that cut through her fear. She follows his lead, trusting his calm even as the world around them seems to collapse. Her balance wavers on the wet pavement, and she grabs his arm for support. He steadies her gently, never rushing her movements, never letting panic rise between them. The storm may control the sky, but he stays focused with complete clarity. The rig slams into a nearby barrier, sending a spray of water and sparks across the pavement. The impact shakes the ground, vibrating through Sandra's legs as she clings to Keanu's arm. The cables overhead snap loose, swinging wildly in every direction like dangerous whips. One cable drags across the street and crashes against a prop storefront with a deafening crack. Sandra flinches at the sound and instinctively steps closer to Keanu, seeking safety in the only place she feels protected. He responds by shifting his body to shield her from the flying debris. Crew members continue shouting, telling people to back away, telling them to move toward shelter. But the storm swallows most of their words, turning instructions into distant echoes. Sandra can barely hear anything except the pounding rain and the crash of metal collapsing behind them. She tries to steady her breath as the shock settles into her bones. The fear is real, sharp, and overwhelming, yet Keanu's presence keeps her from spiraling into panic. He stays near, guiding her with gentle pressure on her arm and calm direction in his voice. The structure shifts again, dragging part of its frame across the pavement before coming to a dangerous stop. Cables swing like restless shadows above them, knocking against walls and metal props. The storm refuses to ease, pushing wind through the narrow street in violent bursts. Sandra feels her knees weaken under the weight of fear and cold, but Keanu steadies her again with quiet certainty. Every action he takes shows his kindness, his humility, and his instinct to protect without hesitation. His voice remains steady, reminding her that they will move together, one step at a time. As the rig settles into its unstable position, the danger still isn't over. Loose parts vibrate under the storm, and more sections threat to fall if the wind shifts again. Keanu studies the scene quickly, calculating new risks and scanning for the safest path forward. Sandra watches him with breathless trust, feeling a small spark of hope through the fear gripping her heart. The storm rages on, but something in his presence creates a thin line of calm around them. The next move will decide everything, and the cliffhanger tightens as another sharp crack splits through the air. The sharp crack slices through the storm like a warning, meant only for the people standing closest to danger. Rain pours harder, hammering against metal and pavement as the unstable rig shifts once more. Sandra grips Keanu's arm with trembling fingers, her heartbeat loud enough to drown out half the noise around her. The soaked pavement reflects flashes of lightning as the street transforms into a blur of motion and sound. Crew members scramble in frantic patterns, some pulling cables away, others dragging equipment toward shelter. The air feels charged with tension, like the entire world is holding its breath before something else goes wrong. Keanu narrows his eyes as he studies the rig, searching for the next point of failure. He sees one panel bending under pressure, another chain shaking like it could snap at any second. The top section leans dangerously, swaying with a rhythm that suggests the storm has full control. He knows one wrong gust could send the remaining structure crashing down. He adjusts his position, stepping slightly in front of Sandra, creating a barrier of safety without saying a word. His steady presence helps her breathe, even though fear still curls tight inside her chest. Sandra wipes rain from her eyelashes, trying to keep her vision clear enough to understand the situation. The street feels unfamiliar now, filled with shadows of falling cables, broken fragments, and sharp bursts of light. She looks up at the trembling rig and realizes how close it had come to collapsing directly on top of her. The thought sends a cold wave through her entire body, deeper than the storm could ever cause. She looks at Keanu for reassurance, and he meets her gaze with unwavering calm. His eyes carry both concern and determination, telling her without words that he will not let harm reach her. The electrician struggles through the rain toward them again, shouting warnings that barely reach their ears. He points toward the upper section of the rig, urging them to move even farther back. Lightning flashes behind him, illuminating the soaked ground and the chaotic scramble of people nearby. His steps slip on the wet pavement, and he nearly falls before catching himself on a nearby case. He knows the danger is still growing, and his urgency reflects the full weight of the situation. Keanu reads the gestures quickly and leads Sandra a few steps farther toward safer ground. The twist arrives without mercy. A long cable near the top of the structure snaps free with a violent burst, whipping downward with terrifying speed. The sound slices through the storm, sharp and sudden, grabbing everyone's attention. The cable swings across the street in a fast arc, crashing into a metal railing and sending sparks across the wet pavement. Sandra gasps and instinctively moves closer to Keanu, who shifts instantly to shield her from the flying debris. He leans slightly over her, forming a shelter with his body as the storm continues breaking around them. The snapped cable triggers a chain reaction. The remaining panels tilt even farther, straining against the battered frame. Rain hits the weakened metal in steady bursts as the storm pushes harder from the east side of the set. Each gust feels like a direct attack on the failing structure. Sandra hears another deep groan, louder than the ones before, signaling the next collapse. Keanu tightens his hold on her arm, guiding her with calm urgency toward a safer corner near a sheltered car prop. She follows his lead, her trust unwavering even as panic threatens to rise again. The ground shakes lightly as another section of the rig tears loose and crashes to the pavement. Water splashes up in a violent spray, soaking them even more. Sparks burst from a damaged panel, lighting the scene in brief flashes of orange. Crew members scream warnings as they push each other toward safer areas behind the false storefronts. Sandra watches pieces of metal skid across the street, her breath quickening with each crash. She feels fear gripping her from all angles, yet Keanu's presence keeps her grounded. His voice remains low, steady, and sure as he tells her to keep moving with him. As they reach the sheltered side of the street, the storm grows even more aggressive. Wind pushes against them with powerful force, threatening to knock them off balance. Sandra slips on the slick ground, her foot sliding across the wet pavement. Keanu reacts instantly, catching her with a firm but gentle hold. His arm wraps securely around her waist, stabilizing her before she can fall. She feels the strength in his touch, not forceful but steady and reassuring. Their eyes meet for a brief second, and gratitude fills her expression even as the storm roars around them. Behind them, another long cable swings loose, crashing against the side of a prop building with a deafening thud. The remaining section of the rig trembles violently, leaning in a new direction as the frame struggles to hold itself together. Keanu studies the movement carefully, realizing that the collapse may spread farther than expected. He keeps his body angled toward Sandra, ready to shield her again if the danger shifts toward their position. His posture holds both caution and kindness, shaped by an instinct to protect without causing any fear. Sandra takes a slow, shaky breath as she leans closer to him, seeking stability in the uncertainty around them. Each crash behind her sends another wave of fear racing through her body, yet her trust in Keanu softens the intensity of the moment. She listens to the calm rhythm of his guidance, letting it drown out the storm sounds that threaten to overwhelm her. She feels the steady rise and fall of his breathing, even and reassuring despite the chaos. That quiet strength gives her enough courage to keep moving, as he leads her towards safer ground. The storm refuses to slow, pushing rain against them in heavy sheets that blur the entire street. Sandra clings to Keanu's arm as the wind whips through the narrow pathway between the buildings. She hears metallic impacts behind them as more pieces of the rig break loose. The sharp echoes bounce between the walls, reminding everyone that the danger is far from over. Keanu stays focused, guiding her with careful steps along the slick surface, making sure she does not slip again. His kindness becomes a shield, not just physically, but emotionally, calming her with each measured movement. Then the second twist reveals itself. As they near the corner of the set, Keanu spots another hazard waiting above them. One of the smaller rig arms, damaged during the first collapse, hangs by a single bolt. Wind pushes it back and forth, making the bolt screech under the strain. If it snaps, the arm will fall directly into the path they are walking toward. Sandra does not see it yet, but Keanu understands the danger instantly. He changes direction, gently but firmly guiding her away from the vulnerable spot. She senses the shift and follows him without question, trusting his judgment completely. The electrician notices the hanging arm at the same moment and begins waving at them again. His concern mixes with relief when he sees Keanu redirecting their path. He signals toward a sheltered doorway near the back of the lot, urging them to reach it before the next impact. Keanu nods faintly in acknowledgement, even though the electrician can barely see him through the rain. Sandra sees the doorway now, a place that finally looks solid and safe despite the storm. She feels a small spark of hope as they approach it. But before they can reach it, the hanging arm begins to fall. The bolt snaps with a loud metallic crack, sending the heavy piece crashing downward. Crew members scream again, their voices blending with thunder and wind. Sandra freezes for a split second, startled by the sudden sound. Keanu moves before she can react. He pulls her close, guiding her in a sharp but controlled turn away from the falling arm. His movements stay gentle even in urgency, shaping protection with care and respect. The arm smashes into the pavement behind them, sending shards of metal skidding across the street. Sandra presses closer to Keanu, shaken by how sudden the danger appeared. He steadies her once more, his calm presence wrapping around her like a promise. They take the final steps toward the doorway, each movement shaped by trust and quiet determination. Yet as they reach the entrance, another sharp sound echoes from the far side of the lot, signaling that the storm holds one more twist they have not seen yet. The doorway offers only a small shield against the violent storm, yet it feels like the first breath of safety Sandra has had since the chaos began. Rain still pours across the pavement in heavy sheets, creating a roaring wall of sound that fills the entire lot. Lightning flashes behind the false buildings, turning every shadow into something sharp and shifting. Sandra stands close to Keanu, her breath shaking as she tries to steady her thoughts. For a moment she believes the worst might be over, but the storm carries a deeper tension that refuses to settle. The air feels charged, almost warning them that something important is still hidden in the noise. Keanu places a steady hand on her shoulder, guiding her farther into the shelter without rushing her. His calm movements give her a moment to breathe, to let the fear settle enough for clarity to return. He studies the street with trained eyes, watching every sway of the damaged rig and every loose cable swinging like a threat. He feels the storm pressing in from every direction, yet his focus stays clear. Something about the collapse does not feel like a simple weather failure. The patterns of the rig movement, the loose bolts, the timing, all feel strangely deliberate. He keeps this thought quiet, not wanting to alarm Sandra while danger still surrounds them. Sandra leans slightly against the wall, letting her back rest against something solid at last. Her clothes cling to her skin, soaked from the storm, and her breaths come in steady but shallow waves. She looks at Keanu, studying the tension in his jaw and the way his eyes scan everything outside. She senses there is more on his mind than the collapsing rig, but she trusts that he will share it when the moment is right. Her gratitude fills her chest, deeper than words could ever express. Even in the middle of danger, he has moved with kindness at every step, guiding her with respect instead of panic. A loud metallic crack echoes across the street, pulling their attention back to the rig. Another part of the structure shifts violently, crashing onto the wet pavement with a jarring impact. Sparks burst upward as the metal scrapes against a grounded cable. A wave of light reflects through the rain, casting sharp patterns across the soaked lot. Sandra flinches at the explosion of sound, and Keanu instinctively moves closer, shielding her without hesitation. His protective gesture feels natural, never forceful, shaped only by concern and deep respect. She closes her eyes for a second, letting that sense of safety calm her racing heart. The electrician arrives near the doorway, soaked from head to toe, breathless from running through the storm. He gestures for Keanu to step aside with him, needing to share something he discovered near the base of the rig. Keanu nods and steps forward while keeping Sandra safely within sight. The electrician speaks quickly, voice strained by the cold rain and fear. He explains that the bolts on the collapsing rig were not loosened by wind. He had checked them earlier himself. All were secure. But when he examined them moments ago, several bolts had fresh tool marks, as if someone had tampered with them shortly before the storm. Keanu listens with calm seriousness, though a quiet chill runs through him deeper than the rain. The news confirms what his instincts had already suggested. This was not an accident. Someone had interfered with the rig, knowing the storm would push it over the edge. But he also knows this is not the moment to start accusations or raise panic. The priority is to protect everyone, especially Sandra, who has already endured too much. He thanks the electrician with steady clarity and tells him they will revisit the issue once the storm settles. For now, they must stay focused on safety. Sandra watches Keanu return with the same calm strength he carried through the chaos. She notices a seriousness in his expression, something sharpened by understanding rather than fear. She steps closer, needing reassurance, and he offers it with a gentle touch on her arm. He tells her they will remain inside until the remaining rig stabilizes or emergency crew arrives. His voice stays steady, warm, and grounding, reminding her that she is not facing this storm alone. The simple kindness in his tone eases the tightness in her chest, allowing her to breathe more evenly. Yet the storm refuses to end quietly. A sudden gust pushes through the alleyway, shaking the smaller props stacked nearby. One tall wooden frame topples over, striking the ground with a loud crash. The impact startles Sandra, causing her to stumble backward into Keanu's chest. He reacts instantly, steadying her with both hands, his touch gentle and secure. She feels his heartbeat against her back, steady despite the chaos outside. She turns slightly, hearing the rain hit the ground in a new rhythm that feels strangely distant compared to the closeness of his support. Keanu helps her stand upright, brushing soaked hair away from her face with a careful motion. Sandra meets his gaze, eyes filled with a mixture of fear, relief, and gratitude. In that quiet moment, the storm feels less powerful, less consuming, because the connection between them brings clarity. He tells her softly that she did well, that her calm through fear mattered, and that they are safe now. His humility radiates through every word. He does not mention his own courage, nor the risks he took to protect her. He only focuses on her safety and her resilience. As the rig settles into a final unstable rest on the pavement, the danger slowly decreases. The wind weakens, though rain still falls heavy around the lot. Crew members begin gathering near safer areas, checking for injuries and damage. The tension shifts into relief as the worst seems to have passed. But the new truth sits quietly between the storm sounds. Someone tampered with the equipment. Someone created a threat without knowing who would be beneath it. Keanu stands in the doorway with Sandra, absorbing the weight of this discovery while still protecting her from panic. Sandra senses something deeper happening behind his calm silence. She steps closer, resting her hand gently on his arm in a gesture of gratitude and trust. The moment holds a quiet tenderness shaped by mutual respect. She knows he will tell her when the time is right. For now, she is simply thankful for the safety he provided and the steadiness he continues to offer. The storm still rages, but her fear has less power now, softened by the kindness in his presence. Keanu looks at her with warm reassurance, ready to guide her through whatever comes next. Then another distant metallic thud echoes from behind the far corner of the lot, a sound that does not belong to the collapsing rig or the storm. Keanu lifts his head slightly, eyes narrowing with renewed alertness. Even though the major danger has passed, something still waits out there in the rain. Sandra sees the change in his expression, and her pulse quickens again. The storm may be weakening, but the mystery behind the collapse is only beginning to reveal itself. The distant metallic thud rolls across the soaked lot like an unfinished sentence the storm refuses to hide. Rain continues falling in heavy waves, yet something about that sound feels different from the chaos they already survived. Sandra leans slightly toward Keanu, reading the shift in his posture before he even speaks. The air carries a new tension, not violent like before, but quiet and deliberate, as if someone or something is still moving within the storm. Keanu places a gentle hand on her arm and guides her deeper into the doorway shelter, making sure she stays safe while he studies the lot with calm focus. The rain softens enough for shapes to become clearer beyond the blurring sheets of water. Broken rig fragments lie scattered across the pavement like fallen branches after a hurricane. Cables twitch with the dying wind, and pieces of metal gleam under every flash of lightning. He listens for another clue, another hint, while Sandra watches his face for reassurance. A second faint clang echoes from behind the far corner of the set. Keanu's eyes narrow slightly, not with fear but with thoughtful alertness. He understands that someone might still be close, someone who does not want to be seen. Sandra feels her breath tighten again, sensing his shift in awareness. Before she can speak, he turns to her with gentle clarity. His voice stays low and warm, reminding her that she is safe and that he will handle whatever remains. She nods slowly, trusting him more deeply than she expected. Her fear retreats in small steps, replaced by respect for the way he protects without intimidation, without anger, without losing kindness. She places a hand on his chest for a brief moment, drawing steadiness from the calm rhythm of his breathing. Keanu steps just outside the doorway, stopping beneath the shallow overhang as rain hits the pavement in softer bursts. He studies the shadows near the storage area where the sound originated. His movements stay deliberate and controlled, shaped by experience and quiet responsibility. He walks toward the noise but keeps a respectful distance, not wanting to escalate anything in the storm. When he reaches the corner, he finds a small toolbox half open on the ground, its contents scattered as if someone left in a hurry. He kneels briefly, examining the tools, noticing one bolt wrench still wet with fresh metal dust. The realization settles into him with measured certainty. Someone was here when the storm began. Someone touched the rig, but the threat has already passed, and there is no need to chase shadows through dangerous conditions. Keanu chooses a path of calm resolution instead of confrontation. He closes the toolbox gently and stands again, letting the storm wash the tension off his shoulders. He turns back toward Sandra, who waits anxiously, her hands clasped in front of her chest. The fear in her eyes softens when she sees his peaceful expression. He returns to her with steady steps, rain sliding down his jacket in long, unbroken lines. She exhales quietly when he reaches the doorway, relief filling her posture. She asks him if everything is all right, and he answers with a nod shaped by reassurance rather than worry. He tells her the danger is over now and that the rest can be handled calmly once the storm clears. The electrician approaches with a few other crew members, explaining that security has been called to investigate calmly and respectfully. There will be no loud accusations, no fear spreading through the team. The resolution will be quiet, careful, and kind, just as Keanu prefers. Sandra watches Keanu as he listens to the electrician. Even after the chaos, he remains grounded, respectful, and patient with every person who speaks to him. Rain continues falling behind him, washing the broken pieces of the rig into calmer shapes on the pavement. Sandra steps closer, her heart still echoing with the fear she carried earlier. She reaches out and gently touches his sleeve, drawing his attention. The small gesture holds gratitude, vulnerability, and admiration all together. Keanu looks at her with warm eyes, the kind that hold no pride for what he did, only relief that she is safe. She thanks him softly, voice trembling not from fear now, but from emotion she can no longer hold back. She tells him that without him she would have been standing directly beneath the collapsing rig. He shakes his head gently, humility clear in every movement. He says he is just glad he was close enough to help. He says her safety matters more than any explanation or praise. The storm slowly begins to fade, the heavy downpour turning into a softer drizzle. The distant rumble of thunder retreats beyond the walls, leaving calmer air behind. Crew members gather under awnings and half-shelters, checking on each other and sharing quiet relief. Sandra stands with Keanu just outside the doorway, watching the last drops fall across the broken set. The crisis is over, yet the moment still feels suspended, held together by the connection that formed under pressure. Keanu removes his jacket, soaked and heavy, and drapes it gently around Sandra's shoulders. She looks up, surprised by the softness of the gesture. He tells her that even storms eventually pass, and what remains is how people treat each other in the middle of them. His words settle into her heart like warm light after darkness. She pulls the jacket closer, feeling not just warmth but the kindness behind the act. Together they step out onto the wet pavement as the rain slows to a peaceful mist. Broken lights and scattered cables reflect the soft gray sky, turning the street into a quiet memory of what almost happened. Sandra walks beside Keanu, matching her pace with his, gratitude filling every step. She looks at him with a gentle expression and thanks him again, this time with deeper sincerity. He smiles in return, humble and calm, carrying no weight of heroism. They walk side by side through the soft remaining drizzle, their connection stronger after every moment they shared in the storm. Although the mystery of the tampered rig will be handled in private, the emotional truth remains clear. Kindness protected her. Respect guided him. Humility shaped every decision he made. The storm tried to break the day, but instead it revealed something stronger than fear. The final drops fall across the lot as they head toward the warm lights of the indoor set. Sandra feels safe. Keanu feels grateful. And the moment ends not with fear, but with quiet understanding between two people who trust each other deeply.